Hello and welcome to Technique Question Entry 7 with Nick from NodeZero.
Hi everyone, hope you brought coffee.
What is your craft?
My craft is turning orbital motion into systemic cadence.
Space isn't empty. It's full of unpredictable trajectories, delta V bottlenecks, and invisible traffic jams. Ships move, mass flows, crews rotate, and windows slip. Left unmanaged, all of it compounds into chaos. We pause, stage, and orchestrate, deciding exactly where ships should wait, redistribute mass, refuel, or hand off cargo and crew. It's not transport, it's the punctuation of interplanetary operations. A comma changes meaning, a node changes economics. Operationally, NodeZero handles docking, mass balancing, fuel exchange, crew rotation, thermal management, cargo reprioritization, schedule arbitration, and emergency absorption. Everything else, heroics, improvisation, one-off missions, depends on this backbone.
Why is this your craft?
Because scale punishes improvisation. Early missions can improvise, make heroic saves, and appear clever, but repeated operations, multiple planets, and dozens of ships make improvisation dangerous and expensive. Delta V waste multiplies, arrival windows collide, and the first minor inconvenience becomes a systemic catastrophe. I watched 3 independent Mars programs all invent the same staging workaround, and all 3 broke differently. Without structured nodes, traffic flows become fragile, risk accumulates exponentially, and operators react instead of orchestrating. Someone has to love the boring middle, the place between launches and landings, between ambition and sustainability. That's NodeZero. Heroics die fast, infrastructure endures.
Who are your customers?
Our customers are operators whose failure modes are systemic, not individual. Orbital cities, capital ship fleets, Mars logistics consortia, anyone managing throughput at scale, where timing, fuel, and delta V errors cascade into catastrophe. The best customers don't call us exciting, they call us predictable, reliable, and unarguable. They already know what breaks when operations scale: fuel misalignments, docking collisions, traffic congestion, and delta V inefficiency. If someone tells you they don't need NodeZero, either they haven't scaled yet or they're lying to investors. We exist before the system punishes improvisation.
What problem made NodeZero inevitable?
Direct-to-destination thinking works for 10 missions. It collapses by the 100th. Arrival windows stack, fuel margins inflate, emergency reserves balloon, and vehicles over-design themselves into inefficiency. Complexity spikes non-linearly, not linearly. NodeZero exists to absorb entropy. Docking clamps, mass rebalancing, crew rotation, fuel exchange, cargo reprioritization. Every function reduces chaos and ensures predictability. Think of it as a keystone. Remove it, and the arch collapses. Ships, stations, and planetary planners can improvise for a while, but eventually, chaos will outpace their best heroic efforts.
Who should not work with you?
One-shot mission planners, flag planting enthusiasts, or anyone allergic to schedules and operational discipline. If you define success as a single landing, NodeZero will frustrate and constrain you. We exist for continuous operations, repeatable throughput, and systemic cadence. Operators seeking heroics or improvisation will find our protocols suffocating. Our value is in metabolizing ambition into sustainable performance. Skip infrastructure, and your cargo burns fuel. Delta V is wasted, and crews suffer avoidable risk.
How does this serve orbital infrastructure operators?
NodeZero absorbs entropy. Without it, operators must predict arrivals months in advance, hold excess fuel and docking capacity, and negotiate every interface individually. We provide a predictable cadence, standardizing docking, fuel, crew rotation, mass rebalancing, and thermal equalization. Shipyards avoid idle vessels, orbital cities avoid traffic jams, and planetary operators can operate at scale without improvisation. Think of us as the difference between a chaotic beach landing and a well-run port. Predictable throughput is the real competitive advantage.
What do orbital operators misunderstand most?
They assume orbit is empty. It isn't. It's unscheduled congestion. Arrival windows collapse, fuel margins inflate, abort reserves rise, and delta V gets wasted without nodes. NodeZero converts invisible congestion into actionable schedules. Docking, mass balancing, fuel allocation, and crew rotation all enforce predictable, scalable flow. Ignoring this is costly. Orbit isn't a vacuum. It's a network that punishes improvisation. Without hubs, operators are guessing. With us, they execute.
How does NodeZero serve lunar operators?
The moon is deceptively constrained. Too close for isolation, too small to absorb inefficiency, too politically sensitive for improvisation. NodeZero provides rhythm, cadence, and optionality. Docking, mass transfer, refuel, and crew rotation are synchronized to reduce risk and maximize throughput. Lunar orbit becomes a factory for movement and staging, not a camping ground for explorers. Operators can scale activities without improvisation. The moon's constrained resources are leveraged efficiently, and every hub function reinforces predictable operations.
How does NodeZero serve a self-sustaining Martian civilization?
Sustainability isn't self-sufficiency, it's resilience under variance. Mars can delay arrivals, reject incompatible cargo, or redirect shipments mid-chain without systemic collapse. NodeZero provides decision buffers and optionality, letting a Martian civilization thrive despite political, environmental, or logistical uncertainty. A civilization that must accept everything immediately is fragile. NodeZero makes Mars operationally flexible, resilient by design.
How does NodeZero synchronize lunar and Martian operations?
We treat the moon and Mars as parallel nodes in a single interplanetary network, not isolated experiments. Docking, mass balancing, fuel, and crew protocols are identical, ensuring repeatable throughput. Lunar operations act as a rehearsal ground, testing cadence and interface standards. Mars then inherits predictable flows, minimizing risk. Every trajectory, schedule, and interface is aligned across nodes. The result is a networked system, not independent missions. Moon and Mars learn from each other continuously.
How should those on Earth think of NodeZero?
Think of NodeZero as a port authority, air traffic control, and switch yard rolled into one, minus nationalism, plus optionality. We make interplanetary logistics boring, reliable, and predictable, turning heroics into systems. Earth sees only outcomes. Mars traffic moves, lunar operations stabilize, supply chains survive political shocks. In short, NodeZero is the invisible infrastructure that makes space trustworthy. It exists so civilization can scale without improvisation.
What is the totality of services NodeZero offers?
NodeZero provides the full operational spectrum: docking, staging, and branch management, fuel accumulation, distribution, and cryogenic transfer, mass rebalancing and cargo redistribution, crew rotation, life support and acclimation, thermal and energy management, schedule arbitration and congestion control, interface governance and protocol enforcement, emergency management and contingency absorption, predictive analytics, monitoring and simulation, redundancy, optionality, and failure mitigation. Every service exists to convert chaos into cadence and risk into optionality.
What has been a surprising experience?
Watching highly skilled operators fail at scale despite decades of experience. Even engineers and planners who mastered one planet stumble when traffic, delta V, and interface variance compound. It's like giving a pilot a dozen planes to fly simultaneously with different rules in each cockpit. Their intuition fails spectacularly. NodeZero's role is obvious in hindsight. Absorb the invisible entropy before anyone else notices it. That reality always surprises newcomers.
What's the toughest type of operator to deal with?
Operators obsessed with heroics over systems. They value first, fastest, flashiest, rather than repeatable throughput. They ignore timing, delta V efficiency, and interface discipline, insisting on improvisation. The result, systemic risk that NodeZero has to absorb. We respect ambition, but at scale, improvisation kills throughput. The tough operators force us to enforce cadence, discipline, and optionality rigorously.
Why don't mission operators just bypass you?
Direct-to-destination collapses under volume. Arrival windows stack, fuel reserves inflate, vehicles overdesign themselves, and emergency margins balloon. NodeZero exists because chaos scales faster than engineering intuition. Bypassing us is like building bridges without abutments. You might survive a few crossings, but eventually, collapse is inevitable. Hubs absorb risk, optionality, and scheduling variance. Surfaces alone cannot manage systemic flow at scale.
Are you just a middleman barrier?
No, middlemen extract rent. NodeZero enables flow. Every service, docking, fuel, mass, crew, schedule is operational, systemic, and mission critical. We don't slow progress, we prevent collapse. Without us, throughput is fragile, wasteful, and unpredictable. Think of us as a keystone, not a toll booth. Remove us, and the arch falls.
What scarcity condition must exist for you to continue?
Surface landings must be expensive, energy intensive, or politically constrained. When landing costs are negligible, staging is optional. NodeZero exists because mass, fuel, and crew cannot afford improvisation. Scarcity creates the need for cadence, optionality, and pause. Without scarcity, our pause, staging, and orchestration functions lose leverage. But until then, we are operationally inevitable.
In what abundant state do your services no longer provide value?
If surface access were cheap, abundant, and instant, there'd be no need for hubs. Ships could land directly, fuel freely, and redistribute mass on the planet. Under that scenario, NodeZero becomes optional, nice to have, but not mission critical. Until then, orbital pause, cadence, and optionality remain non-negotiable.
Can you describe a typical day at NodeZero?
Ships arrive and dock at branches based on mission criticality, delta V, and fuel margins. Crew rotations are scheduled, cargo modules redistributed, thermal and energy systems equalized, and predictive analytics monitor congestion. Fuel accumulates gradually, schedules are arbitrated, and contingencies are simulated. Minor repairs, mass rebalance, or interface adjustments occur seamlessly while everything else continues. By the end of the day, trajectories are realigned, optionality preserved, and throughput optimized. It's boring, precise, and absolutely mission critical.
How do you see the space economy transforming?
The economy will scale via cadence and standardization, not heroics. Modular cargo, standardized refuel, crew rotation protocols, and predictable hub networks will become baseline infrastructure. Operators will compete on throughput, efficiency, and optionality rather than speed or heroics. Hubs like NodeZero will form the backbone of resilient, scalable interplanetary trade. Eventually, interplanetary logistics will feel mundane. A sign civilization has truly arrived. Chaos becomes optional, and infrastructure dictates outcomes.
Why doesn't space operate like air traffic on Earth?
Because air traffic assumes dense infrastructure already exists. Space is infinite in volume, but painfully limited in nodes, fuel, and timing. Arrival windows are months long, and delta V mistakes are catastrophic rather than inconvenient. NodeZero creates the invisible roads and stoplights that allow traffic to move predictably. Without us, space traffic isn't a jam. It's a systemic risk multiplier, invisible until it crashes into fuel inefficiency, missed windows, or collision potential. Think of us as a port, a switchyard, and air traffic control rolled into one, but with stakes measured in millions of kilometers and billions of dollars. Heroics work once, infrastructure scales forever.
Why should the average person care about a space logistics hub?
Because NodeZero is the difference between space remaining a playground for billionaires or becoming a sustainable civilization. Every shipment of water, fuel, or cargo touches a hub. Every pause we manage keeps supply chains alive. Without cadence, Mars and the Moon would be forced to over-design, over-fuel, and overcomplicate every mission, draining budgets, wasting resources, and limiting expansion. Our work is invisible, but foundational. The public sees rockets launching. We ensure those launches actually achieve value, reliably, repeatedly, and without catastrophe.
Where does NodeZero create value that investors cannot see on the ledger?
Value isn't just cargo or revenue, it's throughput, optionality, and risk absorption. Every kilogram of delta V saved, every scheduling conflict avoided, every optional path preserved is money that never has to be spent. Investors see launches, landings, and headlines. They don't see NodeZero preventing supply chain collapse, unnecessary fuel burn, or catastrophic failure propagation. Those invisible savings compound across fleets, months, and planets. We monetize what the ledger ignores, the difference between chaos and cadence. Our infrastructure turns risk into repeatable profit, quietly, at planetary scale.
How do you see interplanetary trade evolving with NodeZero in the loop?
Trade will scale on predictability, not heroics. Standardized refueling, cargo modularity, crew rotation protocols, and networked hubs create predictable lanes of commerce. Operators who adopt NodeZero infrastructure gain speed, efficiency, and optionality. Those who ignore it burn fuel, time, and credibility. Predictable hubs become the currency of trust in space trade, more valuable than launch contracts or political favor. Eventually, interplanetary trade will resemble terrestrial container logistics, boring, precise, and profitable. NodeZero writes the rules while remaining invisible. Markets stabilize because infrastructure exists.
If NodeZero disappeared tomorrow, what would break first?
Everything that relies on cadence, optionality, or resilience. Arrival windows would collapse, fuel margins would balloon, and Mars supply chains would over-design and over-consume. Ships would idle, crews would wait, and political tensions would spike. The failure wouldn't be dramatic, it would be systemic and invisible. Hubs absorb entropy, optionality, and interface conflicts. Without them, every operator would suddenly feel the weight of improvisation at planetary scale. In short, NodeZero doesn't just prevent accidents, it makes interplanetary operations survivable. Without it, civilization doesn't stop. It becomes exponentially harder, riskier, and costlier.
That wraps up Entry 7 with Nick from NodeZero. Thank you for your attention. Cheers!